When we plant an apple tree, we never expect it to bear apples the next day. We give it time and let life determine when it's ripe to grow apples. This is the playing field of life where we cannot interfere. The problem is that humanity always wants to control everything. We forget that we have a subconscious. We also blink our eyes without thinking about it. It's this subconscious that knows what needs to be done. Just as life provides enough water, soil, and sunlight to make flowers and trees grow. To explain this theory, we need to look at the beginning of the creation or manifestation process, the moment when a thought is formed. Or should we say, whenever a person intentionally thinks a thought. We focus only on thoughts intentionally created by a person, new thoughts of which a person is aware, as there is no way to evaluate the more than 50,000 thoughts an average person has in a day. No one can be aware of all these thoughts generated by our subconscious. This enormous quantity of thoughts that go through our minds every day are automatically created. It is life doing its work from our subconscious. In fact, our subconscious organizes and processes all our previous thoughts so that we can shape time, space, and our personal reality perfectly. Our thoughts have the power to manifest experiences in our lives. It's amazing how these thoughts manifest at the right time and in perfect balance, but we need to open our eyes to see it. Just as life ensures that we as humans can live on this planet Earth with the right temperatures, the right resources, and so on, our minds also ensure the manifestation of our previous thoughts. It is truly the perfection of life itself, regulating everything from behind the scenes and ensuring we remain in perfect balance. There was a time when I thought life was terrible, that life itself or God had it out for me, a time when everything went wrong. We all go through these dark periods that we must endure. It helps to know that good times and bad times shift over time, as always. Time and space always bend toward the manifestation of many different thoughts in a specific time period. As Murphy's Law shows us, a period filled with negative experiences. When things are going badly in someone's life, it's the subconscious that provides that person with all the outcomes of multiple negative thoughts that match the specific emotional state at that moment. Whether it's a negative event combined with a negative emotion from an increasing thought, or it's two negative events being combined. Life always combines the emotional states. There are also moments when life seems too good to be true. This is when the emotions from multiple positive thoughts are brought into our reality. Small and big positive thoughts from the past can then be manifested because the emotional state is right. Previous thoughts are combined and allowed to manifest when the emotions created by these thoughts match the present emotional state. This is a larger cycle of emotional ups and downs or positivity and negativity that we experience. It's just another piece of the endlessly balanced structure of life. We don't need to worry about the thousands of thoughts that pass through our minds daily. But we do have the ability to focus on each new thought we consciously choose. Thoughts we are aware of from the moment we create them. The choice of our thoughts is entirely under our control, even if we sometimes think it's not. Almost everyone on this planet has been taught to live in the future, or look back at the past, when everything actually happens in a single moment, in the present. Experiencing emotional states happens here and now, not tomorrow, and certainly not yesterday. When a man thinks of a funny moment from the past and starts to smile, that man is literally bringing an emotional state from the past into the present. In this case, the feeling of happiness is brought into the present. If we then realize that the emotions in the present determine what our future will look like, we can consider taking our emotions more seriously, or at least respecting our power of emotions. New thoughts created today determine what our life will look like from this moment onward, even if life is still bringing us down due to old thoughts that are still being manifested in the present. Bad experiences stem from old judgments we made in the past, but today we can choose to put an end to our old beliefs. We can stop these judgments by creating new ones, by creating new beliefs. At any moment, we can choose to accept that life works in this balanced way. We can choose to understand the experiences that come into our lives, and we can learn to recognize that every positive or negative emotion has its purpose, and that each emotion also has an opposite. The only way to get rid of a negative emotion is by going through it. That is necessary if we don't want to end up in a negative spiral of emotions. If we don't persevere, but instead create a new belief based on a new bad thought, based on a negative emotion during the energy buildup, then we simply interrupt the balanced cycle and manifestation process of the first thought, which may have been positive. If we interrupt, we have to start all over again. A new cycle begins, usually in a negative downward spiral because the newly created thought is bad, a negative thought with a negative belief. This knowledge is found in many famous words, just like the knowledge found in the following quote. There is more truth in famous quotes and lyrics from artists than we might think. When you're going through hell, keep going. Sir Winston Churchill. Every emotional state, no matter how painful the emotions may be, has an opposite emotional state. This means that for every good feeling, there is also a bad feeling. If, during a bad or negative emotional shift following a positive thought, no new belief is created, we also get the opportunity to experience the opposite emotional state, the positive emotional state, the desired experience. Both emotions continue to increase in strength until the first thought is manifested. We just need the courage to go through the negative periods with confidence, knowing that it is only temporary. We call and life delivers, regardless of which initial thoughts we choose. Life doesn't care whether we choose positive or negative thoughts in our lives. It simply reflects our own thoughts back into our reality. A great method for getting through difficult times is to see the negative movement toward the event as a test. It allows us to play with life rather than seeing ourselves as victims. If we know that we will encounter negativity along the way, we can prepare for it and even predict what might happen along the way. If we already know when the event will occur, for example, when someone has an appointment in a few hours, we can literally predict at what moment we will experience which emotion. We can now know in advance when good or bad emotions will occur. For example, when this person looks in the mirror and thinks they look good, that's a feeling of self-confidence. But it's possible that this person may experience doubt or anxiety a few minutes before the appointment or event takes place. Chapter 13. The Opposites. Many people create new first thoughts in a ritualistic way. This is the case for people who can't seem to stop complaining. It's as if they have to do it every day. Many of them say things like, "It's another rainy day," or "There's nothing on TV," without realizing what they are actually doing by saying that. Even if they know or realize that they shouldn't say it, they just speak before they can stop themselves from saying these words. They are used to doing it without anyone telling them that it's not good to complain so much. This happens because we have learned to speak before we think. That's also how people interact with each other, by having spontaneous conversations. Taking control of our thoughts can take some time because we are not used to it. Our thoughts have had the chance to act freely since the day we were born. A great method to become aware of our negative way of thinking is by observing others. For example, by saying or thinking words like, "That person keeps saying negative things," or "That person will attract a lot of negative experiences if they keep saying things like that." When we observe others, we learn more about ourselves. We start paying attention to our own behavior, such as becoming aware of our daily judgments, our own physical and verbal reactions, and last but not least, our own way of thinking, just by observing others. When people think, emotions are created. Something changes in the energy field around the person who is thinking, just as the natural environment changes when life creates something new. A new environment means new characteristics and a different reality than before. The moment of creation is when a thought is formed. Once this happens, the thought begins the process of manifestation. This is a growth process, just like the growth process of cold and warm winds before tornadoes are formed. Again, between the moment of thought and the moment of manifestation, not one, but two emotions are created. But as mentioned earlier, there is no guarantee that an event will occur at a specific moment. It can be interrupted. If we truly want a thought to become reality, we must complete the manifestation process, including the negative emotions that come with it. The greater the emotion created by a thought, the greater the opposite emotion will be as well. Life gives us the opportunity to change our thoughts about something. We have time to reconsider our thoughts, and we can interrupt the manifestation process of a thought at any time. This is actually great because it wouldn't be positive if every thought immediately became reality, especially when considering the negative things people dare to say or think. So, It's actually a good thing that there is a time delay between thought and experience. What if we start using this time well? Because we have learned to see everything as random events, we lack the patience to wait for the manifestation of our desires. Instead, we keep interrupting the manifestation process of the things we truly want by creating new thoughts that produce unwanted emotions. Fortunately, it seems that the interruptions themselves are also limited when we look at an even larger life cycle, a bigger puzzle piece. When people keep creating negative beliefs over and over and repeatedly interrupting the manifestation process, it means they keep creating new bad thoughts. At some point, the human body will no longer accept this enormous negativity. This downward spiral that can last for years must also have its opposite, so sooner or later, the opposite will occur. The end of a long-lasting depression can easily be followed by a period of success and happiness. Everything is just part of a larger cycle. At this point, everything you've read so far is based on irrefutable facts and grounded in the universal structure of life. This theory is entirely based on the fundamental principles of life. In other words, the balance of life. Could this represent the holy power of three? The holy power of three often refers to the concept of triple strength, where the number 3 is considered symbolically powerful and sacred in various cultures and traditions. Just as the human body may feel the need for harmful substances like alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs, the mind may also tend to seek negative thoughts, simply because we are accustomed to them, as if they have become a part of us, a sort of ritual. To get rid of our negative thinking patterns, we must almost think of a detox process for our minds, a process that takes a lot of time and effort. Patience and courage are necessary to go through this unpleasant part of our journey. We could consider this as the awakening process. When this chapter is closed, an entirely new world will open up for us, a new personal reality in which limitations no longer play a role, a world in which we can go far beyond the so-called normal human capabilities and constraints. At this moment, it seems that many people lack knowledge. It's as if only a few are aware of what is truly happening while we think. Why have we never noticed the two opposite emotions being perfectly balanced created every time we have a thought? The lack of understanding of how all creation comes about is the reason why no one has noticed this balanced structure of life. We have never been encouraged to pay attention to it, and we tend to think that everything happens randomly and by chance. This is entirely understandable since not every thought is actually converted into reality. When belief in a thought disappears, nothing happens, making it seem like many things happen randomly. If every thought were to lead to an actual experience, we would all be aware of the divine power hidden in our minds. But that's not the case. It seems that we don't understand how we influence our minds by nurturing doubts or giving up. Everyone should ask themselves, where would I be today if I hadn't given up so quickly? The answer would be, in a different reality, in the literal sense of the word. Life is about the choices we make through our thoughts, not the things that happen to us. We are the creators of our own reality. When we understand this and are willing to accept that we are responsible for our problems and negative experiences, we can step out of our comfort zone. When we leave our comfort zone and start experimenting with the divine power we possess, amazing things can happen. Things we previously considered impossible. I would like to emphasize that I intentionally repeat the information in this book. This was a conscious choice on my part. I wanted this book to be easily readable for everyone and ensure that it could be fully understood by everyone. Some people may get annoyed or bored by the repetitions and pass judgment on me, as well as the book itself, but I am fully aware of that. In fact, I had expected this. But what were your thoughts on this? Did you notice the repeated knowledge words? Did they bother you? Were your judgments or frustrations quick thoughts, part of emotional fluctuations, or maybe even a new belief? This is an example of how our minds are unique and differ from one another. We all process and interpret information we see, hear, or read in our own way, with different levels of awareness, skepticism, tolerance, frustration, patience, belief, openness, and so on. This, combined with the thoughts we generate, makes us who we are as individuals, and this is what is meant by our free will. The driving force behind creating realities using our human mind is belief, which is actually just another form of energy. Just as gravity moves physical objects in a certain direction, belief does the same. Belief guides us to the destination set by our thoughts. When we plant a seed in the ground, we know that something will grow. provided we do not pollute or destroy the soil. We don't need to understand exactly how life brings about this miracle. It just happens. We also don't need to try to control it, as that would be disruptive. If belief in a thought is maintained, the corresponding emotion created by that thought will manifest in reality. In fact, it's the desired emotional state activated by the thought that will be manifested. Whether it's the joy of driving a new car, the pleasure of having a beer, or the happiness of singing karaoke, life always seems to know exactly which emotion and experience to invoke. This single emotion, joy, actually represents an entire collection of different emotions that we all place under the same category of joy. In reality, there are various emotional states hidden behind the overarching emotion of joy, but we often don't see it that way. It's like claiming we own a car without mentioning what type of car it is, its color, or the engine size. The true value of an emotion is determined by emotional intensity and frequency, not by our personal labels. Regardless of what we think, two opposite emotions are always created. However, the frequency and intensity of these two emotions are always determined by the amount of emotional energy we invest in a thought. If the emotion elicited by a thought is powerful, the opposite emotion will also be powerful during the manifestation process, and this will also be reflected in the ultimate experience. If we think big, we will experience big. If we think modestly, the experience will be modest or even insignificant. When we don't expect significant changes in our lives, only minor shifts will occur. Without realizing it, we can undermine our own dreams by refusing to dream big. But imagine what would happen if we dared to dream that greatness while holding on to our belief. As long as you're going to be thinking anyway, think big. Donald Trump. So, the stronger the primary emotion elicited by the thought, the more intense both the positive and negative emotions will be during the manifestation process. That's the same reason why many talented artists and celebrities today are where they are. If we closely examine their life stories, we often see that many of them had absolutely nothing at the beginning, with a difficult childhood, personal issues, alcoholism in their family, bullying, and more. But now, from our perspective, they seem to have achieved everything. The point is that they literally had to go through the dark before they could reach the top of the skyscraper. They had to break down before they could wake up. They had to let go to stop going up and down. These kinds of words should sound familiar when we connect them to some songs on the radio. In fact, almost every song on the radio seems to be about this balanced structure of life. About awakening, rising after setbacks, falling and getting up again, not giving up, and especially overcoming fear. And it's not just recent music that addresses this theme. Even famous songwriters from the past seem to be aware of this secret that remained hidden from most people. Now, everyone understands it. When someone wants to transform their entire life, they must confront their inner demons, explore the boundary between good and evil, and experience emotions that most people would rather avoid. But when the original thought eventually manifests, if belief was never let go, all that effort seems worth it. All motivational speeches and inspirational messages revolve around this principle of not giving up. But this theory gives us the logical basis behind this principle. Is it purely coincidental that the small group of people who have become famous and wealthy are also known for their understanding of this balanced structure of life and how crucial it is to overcome fears and doubts? I often wonder if people actually listen to the true messages that songs bring us, because if they did, they would already understand much more about the power of the mind and overcoming fear. If we truly listened to the content of song lyrics, we would gain insight. Life is a beautiful place that gives us the opportunity to reinvent ourselves and create the world as we've always envisioned it. This is truly amazing, but there lies a problem. We have rarely consciously used our creative power. We have often allowed others to make decisions for us, thereby giving away our power. But when we awaken and chart the course of our own lives, we become creators. We can try to deny that we are creators, but ultimately, we will have to acknowledge that we shape our own reality. All we have to do is look around us. We possess the power to create new things in life, just as life itself constantly creates new things. When we understand that everything in life takes time to grow or manifest, we might begin to comprehend why some things don't happen immediately. When we think, we are essentially planting a seed that needs to grow into an experience. That's why people often say, you have to let it go. That's exactly what we need to do. We need to let life do its magical work without trying to control it. We don't need to understand precisely how everything works because our conscious thinking can never fully explain how thoughts actually bring things into reality. Just as we don't question and try to control every cell in our body, we let our body do its thing, much like we don't question when we move our fingers. We just do it. Chapter 14. Time to manifest. The time between a thought and its realization can be referred to as manifestation time. But why do we disrupt our planted seeds by stepping on them or replanting them, creating new thoughts before the original thoughts have manifested? Instead of sabotaging our own wishes and dreams repeatedly, we can ask deeper questions like, can I find out how long it takes for a specific thought to manifest without interfering? Or, what possible experiences might occur during the manifestation process of my dreams? How much do I truly want this? Is experiencing the opposite emotional state worth it? When we look at life itself, we see that larger things take more time to take shape, much like manifesting our desires and dreams. Compare it to the formation of a tsunami, where the water first recedes far back into the ocean before returning with full force to hit the shore. The concept of large is subjective and depends on our personal perception. In reality, there is no big or small. Everything is part of the same energy, the stuff of stars. If we consider something as difficult to achieve, we will experience the corresponding emotional state as if it is genuinely hard to attain. If someone's dreams are enormous, it means that life needs to revise the entire structure of their existence, including their surroundings and daily routine, because they expect significant changes. For example, if someone simply wants to manifest a new car, it involves only the replacement of an object with no significant impact on other aspects of their life. But if someone dreams big, like living the life of a famous rock star, their entire life needs to be revised, including their job. Life will compel them to let go of old patterns, rituals, and beliefs, and this might mean leaving their comfort zone. Thus, life shapes time and space for the thought to manifest, and forces us into action. Such significant steps can discourage people from taking action. Many prefer the easier path of creating new thoughts and beliefs. But if we want to create real change, we must experience powerful emotions. If someone wants to continue their journey to success, they will also need to understand how failure feels. Life can literally fall apart when someone tries to change everything. But once that happens, people often give up because it doesn't seem like there's anything more to hold on to. This is the problem of lack of trust, which arises because it seems like there's nothing left to hold on to. We no longer trust so much in our own imagination, our intuitive sense, or even our personal beliefs. Everything must fall apart before an entirely new environment can be created, much like a person can't tour the world with their rock band if they're not willing to say goodbye to their daily job. This is where sacrifice comes into play, followed by the question, how much do I really want this new life? The steps as described above are challenging, but what if we have no doubt and are certain that things will turn out well? This is a form of faith that only a few master, similar to the small group of millionaires, billionaires, and celebrities who aren't afraid to take a leap into the unknown. If we want to create an event in our life, a moment when a thought actually physically manifests, the energies of both opposites must grow to their maximum energy levels. However, it's easier to realize the experiences we want to manifest if we consider them as energy rather than material things. If we see this energy as something normal without attaching too much emotion to it. As often happens when we think about our biggest dreams, then the opposite emotions during the manifestation process will also be experienced as normal or bearable. The interesting thing is that the ultimate experience will be the same, and the thought will be manifested. The only difference is that the emotional fluctuations will be smaller due to our expectations. This explains why people often say, don't expect too much. Because the more positive results we expect, the more negative emotions we can anticipate during the manifestation process of a thought. By investing significant amounts of energy into a thought, we can be sure that an equal amount of energy must also be invested in the opposite emotion of that specific thought, just to maintain the natural balance of life. In other words, we can make our lives as challenging or as effortless as we choose. Once the manifestation process begins, the cycle of creation starts. We observe that everything in the entire universe is in motion, vibrating, rotating, spinning, and so on. Nothing remains constant. Nothing stays in the same position. Nothing stops. Everything in the universe is either growing or shrinking, getting warmer or cooler. And in life, there is always an upstream and downstream movement, a circular motion. Think of the rotation of the Earth, the cycle of birth and death, the movement of planets and galaxies, the tides of the ocean, the growth and falling of leaves, solar flares and storms, the rise and fall of ice ages, the rhythm of a beating heart, day and night, water levels, love and hate, happiness and sadness, sunshine and rain, and so on. In all these phenomena, there's always an interaction between two opposite forms of energy. It doesn't take science to see that everything follows a pattern and is in constant motion, and this also applies to the two opposite emotions created by a thought, similar to the particles described in particle physics. As mentioned earlier, every cycle has a larger cycle. And this is the structure of life, its perfection. What I personally have never understood is why people ignore that we are part of the same energy as everything around us, part of the universal structure, part of the whole. It seems like the human mind isn't quite ready to realize this, like we need to act foolish before we can come to this understanding. There just doesn't seem to be any other reason why people would ignore the fundamentals of life. It's actually not difficult to grasp that we can create physical realities with the human mind, in the same way all life and all physical objects are formed, from living organisms to distant planets in space. There is so much out there, and it's all part of the same energy. We have the ability to create things with our minds because the power of creation resides in every cell of our human body, in our mind, in our consciousness. We are not extraordinary. We are simply part of the same energy. Yet, we seem to be the only beings on this planet who can consciously turn thoughts into reality, simply because we have the brains, senses, and eyes to see the bigger picture. As the energy of the two opposite emotions increases, the moment comes closer to our reality. During this period, life actually bends toward the desired experience created by a thought. As the energy of both emotions builds up, small experiences begin to appear in the person's life. The person begins to feel the positive and negative transformations related to the primary emotion of the thought as it approaches manifestation. Parents seeing their child leave for a vacation know exactly how these emotional fluctuations can be felt and how quickly they can shift from one emotional state to another. In this example, the emotional shifts can likely produce many rapid thoughts in our subconscious. These emotional shifts and the eventual experience may also be part of the manifestation process of an older thought. Perhaps the entire experience is part of an older thought, like, my son is growing more independent by the day. Soon he'll be standing on his own 2 feet. This thought might have originated a week, months, or even years ago. The universe is made up of circles within circles, and that's how the whole system works. When the positive and negative emotions are nearing their peak, just before the event takes place, that's the point at which most people halt the entire manifestation process, because it becomes too challenging. We want to stop investing energy in a thought because we fear the powerful buildup of negative emotions, without realizing that it's only temporary. Many of us prefer to avoid problems rather than trying to understand that it's okay to experience difficulties.